All right, so Matthew Sweezey is a principal of marketing insights at Salesforce, where he works at the intersection of technology, modern psychology, and media to understand the modern relationship between computers and business, consumers and business. Must be early. He says that his work often is behind the scenes, like helping to architect state of marketing reports for Salesforce or working with MIT on research programs on sales and marketing alignment, and also with LinkedIn in diagramming the B2B persona. I didn't tell him about NATO. I'll leave that for you. But he does something to the effect of working with radicals. All right, so Matt is a highly regarded speaker. I heard about him from my friends in Boston. We're lucky to have him here with us. And he's going to be talking and leading us off on this conversation of artificial intelligence and the impact in selling. So welcome Matthew Sweezey to the stage.
We definitely know artificial intelligence, what that means. Just a couple other housekeeping notes. My name is Matthew, last name Sweezey. Jam those two things together and you get M. Sweezey, and I grabbed that Twitter handle, which is great until you read it real fast and realize it's Miss Wheezy, and I am now Miss Wheezy on Twitter. Yeah, so feel free. That's how you can reach me if you need. Yeah, I was in the rap game early, so you can find me there. So really, I should also say, like, why am I here? Why am I talking to you guys? There's a lot of interesting stuff that I do. But a lot of you, like, you're not a sales guy, and I didn't hear anything about artificial intelligence. So two more things you might want to know. I was the second salesperson at a company called Pardot, helped grow that company, and then we sold it to ExactTarget, and then Salesforce. So also we helped incubate companies that you may have know of, such as SalesLoft back in the day. Also, I deal a lot with artificial intelligence, so I also help direct our products. So I have a deep understanding of artificial intelligence and both its impact to our customers and your customers. So there's a lot of interesting things that we're going to talk about. So one of the first things I want to talk about is, what does artificial intelligence mean? And just before we get going too fast, can I just get a quick show of hands? Hands if you are a sales executive. All right, hands if you are a salesperson. Got it. All right, thanks everybody. All right, so let's talk about what it means for both sides. So what is AI? And this is a really big question. I think we should define this first before we get moving too far. And this is kind of the way I want you to think about it, because if we break it down into these three buckets, we can really understand AI and its implications and if it will or won't work for you. It has to have these three components. Has to have data that you can then look at and get answers and obtain answers from. And that is an algorithm that then does that. And then past that, there's the computing power that's powering the algorithm. Is the computing power powerful enough to make those computations quick enough to make that data useful? And if you put those three things together, you end up with artificial intelligence. And that's really kind of just a basic framework that we can look at. And if we look at it in this way, we can kind of get an idea of where we've gone and where we will go with artificial intelligence. So really, AI starts back in 1999, and marketing automation is really a very low-level form of artificial intelligence, because you're taking data from a behavioral input, you're running it through a basic algorithm that is an if-then statement, and then it's outputting some type of an action that you would not know about otherwise, such as notifying a sales rep that there's a prospect looking at the pricing page, so on and so forth. That really started in 1999 with a company called Eloqua. And as you know, who here uses marketing automation at this point? Most people? All right, yeah, so we're pretty far advanced down that road. With that then comes the idea of sales alerts, which are another form of an automation, a very low-level artificial intelligence. And then we started getting into machine learning as we move towards our present time, as well as productivity apps. And we're going to talk about some of these specifically and kind of how they're utilized and the impacts. And then we're going to talk about more fun things that we get into, such as chatbots and the use of chatbots inside the sales process and artificial intelligence via chatbots. And then if you look on the far right, I've got some things in different colors. And then the acronym NLP is natural language processing. And I think one of the things I want you to understand through my talk is the limitations that you are going to face with artificial intelligence based on certain factors and where it actually is. There's the idea of everything can be this magical world, and then there's the reality of we actually don't even have the technology in place yet to do just basic natural language processing. That is still a ways out before we were 100% past natural language processing. That just means understanding the syntax of words. So if you say the word read, is it read or read or some other type of form of the word? Past that, then there's natural language understanding, which has not been reached and will not be reached for a while. All this is in an effort to get to what we call generalized AI, which essentially means throw anything at it and anything can come back. We are a very long way from generalized AI, right? So just keep in mind what AI is currently, where it is. It doesn't even have the ability to do full natural language processing. It can do some, but it's not 100% yet. Past that, we're then going to see CI, which stands for conversational interface. And we'll talk a lot about this later in the talk. This is where essentially most of your businesses will move to. The question you should ask yourself is, are you going to have a website in 5 to 10 years? And my answer to that is yes, but it will be in a very different format than it is now. If you just want to think of this at a very basic level, we're in like super, super early days of websites, and you can just think about this in a really basic format. If every prospect comes to your website, do they see the same website? Why are they seeing the same website? Because they're there for a different reason, right? So if you can think basically about those things, then say, well, hey, if we can understand who they are and automatically use data to then change that, that's a form of artificial intelligence. What they will turn into are conversational interfaces, which will be a melding of chatbots, of artificial intelligence, and lots of different things that will be a completely different, unique experience. They will be guided by all different tactical inputs. Voice will definitely be a part of that, but it will not be the major one. And we'll talk about voice as we move on, as we go through. But that's just kind of a timeline so you can understand where we've been, where we're going, and kind of when you can expect to get there, right? Remember, conversational interfaces and understanding are much closer to 2025 or after. All right, so let's talk about artificial intelligence light. This is what I want you to understand. These are some places that you can put artificial intelligence into your sales organization today that are highly effective. And they're light, right? And so what do I mean by light? I mean, it's small data. I mean, it's a simple algorithm, and it's computationally light. It's not going to require hardcore computing, right? So you may have heard of the term quantum computing, and if you haven't, you will later. Quantum computing is essentially the idea of a different type of structure that's not based off zeros and ones. It's based off wavelengths and peaks, so it allows for different types of computations to happen. We don't have to worry about any of that in your business today. Right? That's going to be for hardcore, extreme AI, and that we'll talk probably more about in the panel about where that will lead your business overall in the future. But let's just talk about some AI light that you can implement today. These are pretty much productivity apps, and there's a massive wide range of suites of productivity and sales productivity apps. Anyone use calendar apps like Calendarly? Yeah, so we got that one. That's a pretty easy one. Duplex, I think a lot of us heard the story of Google Duplex on the news. If you haven't, raise your hand if you're not familiar with the word Google Duplex. It's okay. It's brand new. All right, let me explain this one. So Google, a lot of people believe that Google has just passed the Turing test. The Turing test is the test where artificial intelligence can actually pass as a human being, where artificial intelligence engages with another human, and that human is not able to ascertain that it is an actual robot, right? That is the Turing test. And it was Andrew Turing that created that. If you remember that, what was the movie? Say it again. Imitation Game, thank you. Imitation Game was the movie where it talks about Turing, how he uses his computational power to break the code and save World War II. So that's the guy that creates the test. Duplex was the ability for artificial intelligence to make and schedule things via a phone conversation. So you would say, I want to go have a restaurant reservation. You could talk into your phone, make me a reservation at 7:30. The chatbot or application actually then calls the restaurant, and with a human voice that has ums and ands, and you should just Google Duplex when you get back and watch this and listen to it. It's phenomenal. But yeah, it's very freaky, and it opens up lots of ethical questions that we should probably talk about later. But the point is that's a basic productivity app, hyper-powered by artificial intelligence. We're not there in the general sense for a long time. Other apps, SalesLoft is a great another app. Anything that is productivity-based, those are artificial intelligence. You have to use those now. The reason is sales is all about speed and knowledge. Can you get to the correct person, and can you have the correct conversation? It's helping you weed through all of the tasks that you're supposed to do on a daily basis and focus in on the ones that bring you and your business the highest revenue per work possible, right? Think about those right now. And if you're not using those, just go do some basic searches and you will find there's a massive wide range. I mean, I'm sure lots of the other professionals in this group use lots of them and can give you pointers as to which ones you should use. Here's the basic things. Notification apps are another one. Here's some basic notifications that salespeople must have. These are behavioral cues based on your sales funnel. So which prospect is taking which action, essentially leading you to know who to talk to when and how about. The ideas of nurturing programs that sales can add people to, where sales can say, the prospect says, call me back in 60 days. Sales can push a button, and then communication is automated between that salesperson and the prospect over the next 60 days, where the salesperson doesn't have to lift a finger. When that prospect does engage, notifications then come back to the salesperson in lots of different formats, fashions. Traditionally, this is a marketing automation play. All right, so big wins via small AI. All right, let's take the next step. Let's talk about progressive artificial intelligence inside your organization. So growth hacking is a really, really good use case for artificial intelligence, specifically inside of businesses, inside of selling. So automation 1.0 was this idea where we'd have a marketing automation technology. And automation 2.0 is the idea that we have webs of technologies that have data on their own that then share computation back and forth between each other. I'm going to kind of gloss over this real quick just to save some time and kind of hop to the fun parts, and that is chatbots. So what we need to think about is how do we integrate chatbots into the sales process and into your organization. Chatbots are direct artificial intelligence. They can be very simple programs, such as a decision tree. If they say this, respond in this way. But they also have the ability to learn by the conversations and change on the fly. The point of a chatbot is twofold. Consumers love chatbots for the simple fact that they are fast, and they get them to the answers faster. And they do that via artificial intelligence, right? So let me give you a couple basic stats on chatbots that you should keep in mind. First off, 80% of consumers prefer engaging via messaging applications. So think about the way that customers want to engage with your business and realize that there are lots of different formats and places. Messaging applications have actually overtaken social media as the #1 platform and use of social media. Think of Facebook Messenger versus Facebook Newsfeed. Two very different aspects of the same application. One is used much greater than the other, right? Now, people want to engage with chatbots over these three mediums: over email, over apps, and over phone calls. They find chatbots more helpful than those three mediums. Back to the point of speed. The consumer values speed, so anytime you can help them get to the answers faster, you are going to win. This is where artificial can play big, because if someone is asking questions and in the buying cycle and comes to your website, let me ask you a really basic question. How many pages on your website do you think the average visitor goes to? I got 2, 3. The average is 1.7, which means they will not even go to a second page on your site. So all this time that you are spending creating content and putting it in your content section, they will not find that content. Here's how you need to think about it. What's more powerful at answering their question? Google or your website? So why in the hell would they stay on your website? Think about that. And that's the power of chatbots. To say, we know who they are, we know what they want, we can artificially get that information to them, and it solves the content conundrum. It's not about having the content, it's about connecting them to the right content at the right time, right? So if we look at this versus applications, this is where consumers prefer chatbots over applications, and the data is overwhelming, sometimes 5-to-1. In every use case, and here's my favorite, consumers value chatbots because they also help them connect to the correct person faster, right? So think about that. If that correct person is a sales rep, this is where your sales leads will be coming from. In fact, that is what happens when a lot of companies use this application called Drift. My favorite is a company called Segment. This is G. I can't say his name, and he just has everyone call him G, so we just call him G. G is one of my favorite marketers, and his sales team loves him, right? They use chatbots, and this is now their #1 lead generation source for their business, right? So think about that, right? Artificial intelligence, not just in helping you drive sales through the sales pipeline, but actually getting leads to you in the sales profession. This will then be a combination effort of you and your marketing team putting these things in place. Who will run this? It has to be a combination effort. You have a lot of specific tactical knowledge of how to talk to customers. They have a lot of technical knowledge on how to manage the website, how to create good experiences. Those two things have to be melded together for this thing to work. So it's going to be a combinational effort. Let's talk about more futuristic ideas and some larger aspects of artificial intelligence. One is type of predictive lead scoring, or essentially artificial intelligence to tell us where should we be mining in the sales profession, right? So maybe we sell to the automotive industry. Should we be selling to the banking industry? Where can we find new leads based on things? There's a guy cringing in the back, so maybe he's following what I'm about to put down. All right, so there's lots of companies that do this, and artificial intelligence and predictive lead scoring was a big idea a while ago, and I'm here to kind of burst your bubble on that. This is fine for an open discussion, but let me give you a couple basic pointers on why I think that this kind of jumped the shark and is really not what we want to focus on. So these are just some examples. First off, AI can look backwards, but it's very hard to look forward if you don't have the correct data set to look forward against. Right? So if all of your current deals are in the automotive space, there is not the data for the artificial intelligence to figure out new markets for you to enter. Right? That is a data problem. Go back to that, what is AI? It takes the correct data plus the correct algorithm plus the correct computing power. If you don't have the correct data, how can it make that decision? It can't on your own, but it could on collectives. Right? So here's a couple of issues with predictive lead scoring and using artificial intelligence to do this. One, data sets aren't big enough. And two, the algorithms aren't complex enough, right? Most algorithms are off the shelf. These things are not being created by your individual departments. They're open source many times. You could create your own, but it's an extremely complex process we can probably talk more about during the panel session, right? And next, zero AI, which means the artificial intelligence does not have to be trained, does not exist yet. So think about this. Alexa took 50,000 hours of language to program. 50,000 hours of language to program Alexa, right? That is a lot of data and computing power, right? We do not have zero AI in the world, which means it doesn't require training. It can train itself. That's not existing yet, so it's a problem. Second is productivity, opportunity, identification, predictive opportunity. I talked about this. It's very hard to predict opportunities in markets that you don't have the data to support. If you can't say, go look at these markets and tell it what markets to look at, and give it that data, it doesn't have the ability to do that on its own yet. When we get to zero AI with quantum computing, it will. But that's another, 10 years out at least. All right, so let's talk about the future, and then we're going to wrap this up and get to the panel. This is what a conversational interface is going to look like for your business in the future. This is important for you to understand because this is where your leads will come from, and this will be how you will interact with many of your leads in the future, right? So traditionally, we think about live chat as a support or service application. It will be how you will communicate with buyers over a long buying cycle. Everyone here understands the buying cycle is much longer, and we have to engage. A lot of times, we rely on content marketing to do the things that salespeople should be doing, mainly rapport building, objection identification, and objection handling. Content on its own cannot do that, but a salesperson, given a chatbot, can do those things by knowing what questions to ask and taking very specific actions directed by artificial intelligence inside of that roadmap, right? High performers are 17 times better at collaborating across the entire customer lifecycle. You will be a part of that collaboration. You will be leveraged not only on the initial sale, but you will be leveraged on the upsell, on the continuation. You will be leveraged across every touch point because your skills of selling, of objection handling, of rapport building, and identification are useful throughout the entire lifecycle. So will artificial intelligence replace sales? Did anyone read this report by Gartner that by 2020, 1 million sales jobs will no longer exist? Yes. All right, so let's talk about this. And I'm really interested in this because a lot of things, and I think a lot of us understand that it's not going to be replacement, it's going to be enablement. Our jobs have transitioned already, right? We're no longer doing what we used to do just 5 and 10 years ago. Why should we assume we'll be doing the same thing in the future 5 or 10 years ago with innovation continuing at the same pace? We won't. Right? But humans plus AI can play better chess than just a computer with AI on its own. Does everyone understand that example? So everyone knows the chess example where a computer just strictly with artificial intelligence cannot beat a human with a human plus artificial intelligence. So a combination of the two is more powerful than one by itself. All right? So that's what we need to think about. Sales will see AI as compasses directing them what to do, where to do, and then many times doing a lot of those low-level things for them, rather than actually replacing their entire jobs. And here's the number one reason why I don't believe artificial intelligence can completely replace salespeople. It's one very basic reason. Why would a human want to play a game when they know their opponent is always going to win? They won't, right? There needs to be some semblance of a relationship, of humanity for that relationship to exist and prosper. And artificial intelligence, until it gets to that very, very high level where we can't actually tell if it's a human or not, will succeed, right? So let's just wrap it up with conclusions. Artificial intelligence is in all kinds of forms. low and high. We need to figure out where that applies. AI is going to be the compass point for you, directing your business and operations. And with that, I'm going to say thanks, and then we can hop over to the panel. Yeah, bud.